Adam, I'll never even come near that. Like, we don't say bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Yeah, who will say? You know, what are you? In the boy, moms, it will be like that, right? So, the point is, you should have a love expression. Because when you say a love expression, it brings something that is intimate and intricate to you. Yeah? You love your person, and as you love your person, as you love your spouse, you grow in that love relationship. And when you grow in that love relationship, the relationship becomes intimate. And when that relationship becomes intimate, the expression that comes out is a love expression. Yeah, and I remember my wife is also here, you know. I think it's after a long time that for a family conference we are together, a family meeting we are together. The last 1.5 months, I have been going to family meetings. I am going alone, so I can say things, you know. So she's not there, right? So today she's there. So and you know, that's what we have learned in our relationship, is that, you know, as your years and days grow with your spouse, your love expression grows. You know, when we were married for the first year, we used to call, you know, hi babes, you know. But second year, okay, I won't say what I did, okay, what you call me. But when the second year came, you know, when we grew in relationship, the love expression changed. New words came. New words that we don't it doesn't make sense. It's not babes or sunshine, nothing. Doesn't make sense. But you know, that's what a spouse relationship is supposed to be. As a spouse, your relationship is supposed to grow. And here when it says, this is my bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, this is a question that we should ask ourselves as spouse. What love expression I have, that's one thing. Second, have I grown in that love expression? It's so important. You have to grow in your love expression. And when Adam said that bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, it's so they say, you know, the woman is the bony part, no, woman is the flesh part, and the man is the bony part. Man is the bone of the house. That's very male-dominated comment probably, but they say man is the bone of the house and woman is the flesh of the house. It has a lot of meaning to it. You know, a man can make the house, but a woman can give substance to the house. So, you know, it has a very, very deep meaning to it. So as spouse, you know, as spouse, what is our role to our spouse and to our kids? You know, when you have kids and all, it becomes all the more challenging, right? It becomes all the more challenging. I remember my brother, he's saying to me, you enjoy the days you enjoy before you have a kid. Because once you have a kid, I tell you, your days will be terrible. That was his comment to me. But then he said that, you know, though your days will be terrible and horrible, when you look at your kids, the joy that you get from that, you won't ever get. So, you know, that is what family life is all about. You know, this was the first covenant in the Bible. Can you imagine that this was the first covenant in the Bible? And after this comes the Noahic covenant and the covenant to Abraham, all those things. But this was the first covenant that was ever instituted in the Bible, and the covenant was family life. So that says itself that how much important family life is to God. How much important family life, the covenant that God instituted. Today when I said in the church that it is a grace of God. You know, the word in Malayalam, it's called family, there are two words. Family is called in Malayalam, what? Kudumbam, right? Kudumbam. And marriage is called? Yeah, Kalyanam, Vivah. Yeah, it's called Kalyanam. And Kudumbam, Dambatyam, that is another word, I was searching the word, what is the other word? Dambatyam. You know, the first part of the word, Dam, it comes from a Sanskrit word which means gift. It is a gift of God. Dam, it is a gift of God, right? So this is my question to you. Do you think, Suja, your spouse is a gift of God for you? Say honestly, okay? Say honestly to me.
Yes.
Why? You can say yes or no, but the question is why?
Because God gave me a partner who is someone who actually, through our lives, has encouraged me to do things that I probably would never have done, improved my outlook on life, and made me a better person.
Okay, one, encourage me. Second, what did she say second? Improve?
I said improved, was that the second one?
Yeah, improve. Yeah.
And made me a better person.
Made me a better person. Three things, right? And the three things, the last thing, a better person constitutes of encouraging and improving, right? And through encouragement and improving, you become a better person, right? So, you know, if you go into the psychological angle of it, you become a better person in your family life. How? Encouraging, right? You encourage. I remember, you know, when she had to first give a Malayalam sermon back in Kerala. For the first 3-4 years, I was in a place called Tamitorte, Mandinga. It's a forest area where they send a lot of animals. So I was sent there for the first posting, and she was asked, and we got married, and we were there only for 3 months after marriage, and she was asked to give a Malayalam sermon in a puddle. And she had the fright of her life, and I'm like, you know what I can get a positive from that, you know, we both encouraged us, you know, though I used to come to me, because, you know, she thought that I knew Malayalam, so she used to come to me, and I said, hey look, I don't know any Malayalam at all, please go make yourself. But the first thing that she did, hey, come and give me a sermon. In Malayalam, I'm an actor, right, and I preach, right, you have to give me a sermon. I said, no, you make your thoughts, and you put Malayalam, and then you come to me. So, you know, she's growing, and I am growing. When she brought the stuff to me, I am growing. So that's what family life is all about. It's about small things in life. When she said, you know, encouraging and improving and making a better person. So the question that we have to ask, as family, do we encourage? We get frustrated in encouraging, right? Like she gets frustrated by encouraging me. I remember last 1 year she has been encouraging me for a lot of things, but I get frustrated and I say a lot of negative things. I say, no, negative. But she, you know, always, you know, instills the positive in me. No, God has a plan. God has look at the positive, look at the positive, look at the positive. But that, it means, you know, fellowship to be intricate and intimate. It's more than the physical aspect of it. It's more toward the psychological, the physiological, lot of those factors. Okay? So this is a question that I asked Sujay and I asked you. Is your spouse a gift for you? Yes. Yeah, right. Let me know waiting for you. You understand? No, okay. Now the question is why?
Why? Because during my most negative times, she was there.
During my most negative time, she was there. Okay, that's good. Is he a gift for you?
Yes.
Wow. Everybody's going to say yes, I know that. So prepare the why.
He's just, I want to say he's perfect for me because
I'm coming to that.
because I truly know God and put him into my life. Like he helps me through everything.
Helps me through everything, and he said, what's your name?
Benji.
Benji said, in my most negative time, she is there. Now this is just very important. Now when your spouse go through negativities, are you there for your spouse? Another aspect of fellowship being intimate and intricate. You know, when the whole, it says, you know, when you laugh, the world laughs with you. When you cry, പണ്ട് ഞാൻ 9th ക്ലാസ്സിൽ പോയി ഒരാൾക്ക് ഓട്ടോഗ്രാഫ് ബുക്ക് ഇല്ലയോ, സ്ലാം ബുക്ക് സംതിങ്, ഓട്ടോഗ്രാഫ് എഴുതി ഒരാൾ ഇങ്ങനെ എഴുതി തന്ന പണ്ട് 9th ക്ലാസ്സിൽ. You laugh, your world will laugh with you. When you cry alone. 9th class. ഞാൻ സ്നേഹിച്ച പെണ്ണായിരുന്നു. Yes, in family life, it's so important. It is so important in family life when negativities come. When you see your spouse going through some negative things, are you there with your spouse? Are you there with your spouse? When we think, we think, it is advising our spouse. It should be there. It's not that it should not be there. It should be there. But always remember, the advising should come afterwards. The first thing that should be there is your presence. Onnum venda is your presence. Just give a hug to your spouse, and it will just change the whole atmosphere. And there's a lot of psychological angle to it. How's the psychology of touch? It changes a lot of things. So that's what Benji said. When she's there with the most negative times. What's your name? Silji. Benji Silji. Wow. And you said, what did you say?
He's there for me for everything.
He is there for me for everything. Abhida, bone of my bones and flesh. I'm not giving you any sermon. I'm just taking the points from you. Just imagine it. It's from experience. Family life is from experience. And in this room, we are the most inexperienced young couple. Me and my wife. So I'm taking from the experience how the Bible is lived in our life. How the Bible is lived in our life. So understand this. In the life of Abraham and Sarah, right? When they didn't have kids. They didn't have kids like till 90 or 100. Yeah? And what did Sarah do? Sarah said to Abraham, Abraham, come. You should go and sleep with my maid. She was very negative there. We can say, God had a plan. God had a plan for Abraham, right? He had given the promise to Abraham that something is going to happen. But here was his wife who gave up not on Abraham, but on the promise of God. Not on Abraham, but on the promise of God. She gave up on the promise of God. It's so important. So when the negative things happen in your life, do not give up on the promise of God. You will be so tempted to give up on the promise of God. And as I say that, my wife would be thinking, last 1.5 years, I have been giving up on the promise of God. I have been giving up on the promise. That's our experience. The last 1.5 years of whatever is happening in our life, I'm an Achan, right? I'm not supposed to give up on the promise of God. Right? I celebrate Kurivilla, I give sermon. But you're a human. When a lot of bad things happen in your life, it's so difficult to hold on to the promise of God. And that's why I really thank God for Anne that she during those times made me catch on to the promise of God. And this is very important. This is very you can say it from a very psychological angle, but the main angle is the spiritual angle. The main angle is the spiritual angle that when you're going through the negative things in your life, psychology of touch should be there, a lot of things in there. Psychology of touch in that, but the main thing that will bedrock you in your family life is in Christ. Paul says it, en Christo. It's only in Christ can you be rock steady in your family life. That's how the fellowship becomes intricate and intimate. It's so important. So, bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Okay, so let me ask Sharon. Is your beautiful, handsome? Why? Is a gift? Why? If it's not a gift, kindly clarify. Why is he other than the Makri thingy? Other than that? Okay, why is he a gift?
He is, because, on the outside we're a lot of things, but it's probably only in front of our spouse that we're most vulnerable. They know you as you really are next to God. So knowing you for who you really are and still sticking with you.
That is another very wonderful point, right? Knowing the way you are. They say one of the differences, I want to agree to it, one of the differences between live-in relationship and real-time family relationship is this. Live-in relationship, you don't know, you're trying to prove a point for something, like living in together, probably you can say. Somebody said to me like this, I'm just stating him. Live-in relationship, you're trying to prove something. But in a family relationship, You're not trying to prove something, right? You're not trying to prove something. You're married. You're married. In the Pakka Western way, you're still trying to prove something. In the Pakka Western way of thinking, you're trying to prove something. That you're a good husband. That you're a good wife. You're trying to prove something. But in an Eastern, so we are the people who are between the West and the East, okay? So this particular thinking is in our side. The West and the East, it's all mingled together. So I'm taking both the angles together. In a Pakka Eastern way, it is taken for granted. Right? Look on your Ammachi and Appachins. Appachan and Ammachi, Appachan Appachan will eat and not even a word of gratitude. No positive things for that. So this is another angle. See, everybody's at a different point. Knowing you the way you are. Other interpretation. Bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. This bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh is knowing your spouse the way he or she is. That is the question. Go back home and ask yourself, ask your spouse, how much do you know me? Write down 5 points. What you know me, negative and positive. It will help. Clear? And a lot of things knowing me, Before, I always say, family is a place where you become yourself. You become yourself, right? We say, I've met youths who say, oh, our friends are the most beautiful people on earth. It's good, right? Friends are the most beautiful people on earth. I say to them, yeah, they are the most beautiful people because they stay outside the family, that's why. Because once you get in the family, you come into your tanima, in your rawness. You become angry in your family, right? You shout at your father, or you shout at your mother, or you fight your siblings. You should see how my wife and her brother, how they love each other so much. I am so amazed. You are who you are within your family. And you are who you are within your family, and your family still loves you. That is love. Your friend will love you all the XYZ alphabets of love is whatever is there in the world. Give you good Facebook message, give you smiles in the Facebook message, give you smiles on the text and SMS. But the person who really loves you is your family. Because they see the way you are. It's very difficult. നമ്മളുടെ ദേഷ്യവും നമ്മളുടെ അൺടൈഡിനെസ് സോക്സ് അവിടെ ഇരിക്കും, സോക്സ് അവിടെ ഇരിക്കും, ഷർട്ട് അവിടെ ഇരിക്കും. 10 പ്രാവശ്യം പറഞ്ഞാലും മൈ വൈഫ് ഈസ് തിങ്കിങ് എല്ലാം ചെയ്യുന്ന എന്നിട്ട് ഇവിടെ വന്ന് പറയാൻ എല്ലാം സൺഡേ കുപ്പായം അവിടെ വെക്കുന്ന പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് വീണ്ടും പോയി കുപ്പായം പോയി തപ്പും. എന്നിട്ട് എവിടെ കുപ്പായം? See, this are all things in family life. Your spouse knows the way you are and still love you. It's not still, they love you. That's not still in there. They love you. That it means bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Paul he says, in the chapter of love, which is it? Chapter of love. 1 Corinthians, and there are a lot of chapters in there. Chapter 13, right? The chapter of love. And should sometimes do this exercise. Go home. It says love is patient, love is kind, love does not boast, right? And I used to do that, and I still do that. In my old Bible, the Bible that I started reading when I got saved, I have underlined the phrase love, and instead of that phrase, I have written my name over there. Instead of love, I have written Manu. My house name is Manu. Right? So, what's your name?
Shinu.
No rhyming here, man. Shinu. Hi, Shinu. Nice to meet you. When you go back home, take this chapter of love, and wherever there is love written, put Shinu there. Put Shinu there and see how much do you have love in you. You have read the chapter so many times before. but put your name instead of love. You know, when I did that the first time, Manu is patient. Full stop. Oh, fail I. Out of the fail I will move away to the Manu is patient, full stop. Then it's gone. That in family life, knowing and loving, still knowing how you are, it is that is a love. Are you patient after knowing your spouse the way he or she is? Do you boast? No, that's very important. So some spouse like to boast about the way I'm doing about my wife, right? So true, right? Boasting. And this is the one thing that my wife always corrects me about. Don't tell much about yourself. You always go on. Hindi self-praising. Okay, so there's another term in Hindi. I forgot. Huh? Yeah, that's one particular term. Yeah, you know, our spouse to show off. Oh, my spouse is so yeah, you did so much. That's wrong. That's wrong. Love does not boast. So it's very important. So go back home and when you get the time, as a family, these are some of the exercises that you should do. Together when you sit down. And at the 13th verse, what is written? And above all, three things remain. What is that? Faith, hope, love, and the greatest is love. So this is very important. You know, the first two things. And I told you, in Christ, that should be the bedrock of family life. But when it is in Christ, what should be built it upon? Should build by faith. That should faith should come in. Then hope should come in. And then love should come in. If family is a sort of a building and it has to be built upon something, it is first in Christ, then you have to have faith, and then you have to have hope, and then overall, it's like icing on the top of a cake. Overall, it should be covered in love. It's so important to have faith in a family life. And when your faith goes forward, and when it's the order that comes in, when your faith goes forward and when problem comes in, and when you start doubting God, you have to have hope. You have to have hope, because doubt will definitely come in your way. And that's what Jesus says about this parable, right? The two wise men, two people, one built his house on the sandy land, one built it to rock. So, you know, Psalms 27, it says, you know, until and unless the Lord build the house, the laborers labor in vain. They toil in vain. So, you know, if it is in Christ, you have to have the faith. And in this faith, you have to grow upon hope. It's so important when rough things happen in your family life. If you don't have the hope in the Lord, you will tear down. I know so many families, so many Christian families who have broken down in the family life because they didn't have this aspect of hope. They say, actually, we are believers. We are believers and we go through so many bad times. Why should we follow this law? Then we ask this question, right? We ask this question, why should we follow this God? What's the difference between our family and that family life? We are believers, they are unbelievers, but still, you know, they have been blessed. God, a lot of good things happening. Why are we not blessed? In those particular moments, you should have hope. It's so important. And then love. Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Is that there in our family life? And that particular verse was the epitome of all the family things that was going to happen. And it has to be unlocked in our family life. Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. And I'll ask you the last thing and I'll close it. So, is your spouse before you eat? She is, but why?
She wants me to
She's also very good cook. Wow.
Great cook.
Really? Oh, wow. You come over.
Come over and whenever you like it.
Oh, he said one thing, it's very important. I'm so amazed how it points it. He said, she lets me do what I want to do. This is another aspect of family life, freedom. When Paul says about freedom in Christ, and in the book of John it says, until the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. If the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. This is the aspect of freedom that we should understand in family life. Some spouse, they just don't allow their spouse to be themselves. They just say, oh, വീട്ടിൽ പോകുമ്പോഴേ അടങ്ങി ഒതുക്കിയൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടോണം. ചുമ്മാ ഇവിടെ വീട്ടിൽ കാണിക്കുന്ന ആക്രാമൊന്നും എടുത്ത്. You should instruct your spouse. ഈ കുമ്പസാരം പറയുന്ന കുറെ രീതിയിലാണ് വരുന്നത് കേട്ടോ. Confession, it comes sometimes in a laugh. You're confessing something. Yeah. You need to instruct your spouse at some time, but understand this, there's a very fine thin line. Very fine thin line. Instructing your spouse and at the same time giving him or her the freedom to be himself or herself. Over the years, how to instruct and not, offend him or her, but still giving him or her the freedom. Are you giving your spouse the freedom? After all my sermons, I don't like coming before my wife after my sermons. Because, she comes and says to me, oh, what were you doing there? Why did you say this? Why did you say this? Why did you make that movement? And why did you do this? But that's the difference. She is instructing me. She is not hindering me to not express myself. She is instructing me, correcting me. Improving so important. So in your family life, are you giving the freedom? Psychology was space. Space, private space. Family private space. Private space. Space I give. But that space, when Jesus said, no longer two but one. So that big understanding. Then they are no longer two but one. That means they have their own spaces, the private spaces, they have their likings, their dislikes and everything. And it should become one in Christ. That's why I said it should be grounded in Christ. For in Christ only you will have the faith and the hope to guide together each other in the freedom of the Lord. It's so very important. I will close with a lot of points that came here, and I try to keep it as practical as possible. In the practical life, how these are all big concepts in Christ, but I try to make it very practical. How can you give your freedom? That is the point that we ended with. Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. What an expression of freedom, right? Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh is the greatest expression of freedom. Because then you're no longer two, you're you. Right? Bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, you're no longer two, but you're you. And when you're you have the freedom to do what you want. I'm getting very philosophical here. Are you getting the point, right? Bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. On that note, that's...
Thank you, Achin.